The man who knew Charlie Chaplin arrived in Berlin after the crash in 1929, hoping to find people who had read Mein Kampf and who agreed with him that this book was a very dangerous book. In fact, once he arrived in Berlin, he gave a press conference. He was a very well-known character. He gave a press conference and he said, in my view, the Nazis and this man Hitler who wrote that book, that's a greater danger to Germany than the communists. And this made news. It was in all the papers. And he immediately received threatening letters in his hotel. And he went to the police and he said, I want to have protection. And the police chief with whom he had gone to school 30 years earlier, 40 years earlier, gave them protection, and he had an interview with him. I'll speak about this interview in a minute. But he also had a girlfriend by then who was a minor actress, at Ufer, movie actress, and who hated Marlene Dietrich, who was making a film at this very moment called The Blue Angel. And this girl was entranced by the fact that he, Peter Hammersmith, knew Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin, of course, was extremely well known in Germany at the time and most popular. And he goes to a cabaret and there's a skit. And the skit is about Charlie Chaplin, who looked so much like Hitler, and that Charlie Chaplin would one day make a film about Hitler. They were so much alike. And as a matter of fact, Charlie Chaplin did make a film about Hitler in 1940. That's 11 years later. By that time there was war. And The Great Dictator, the film that Charlie... It was one of those great films. It's very... Chaplin. It turned out that indeed Chaplin and Hitler had a kind of analogies between them. For one thing, they were born within a week of one another in April 1889. And when Chaplin, was approached, I think about 38, that you should do a film about Hitler because you look like him. You could do a great job. Chaplin first said, no, I can't do that. And then he did. It took him 2 years to write that film. And then after the war, when all the revelations came out about the camps, Chaplin said if he had known that, he could never have made that film, making a burlesque of Hitler. Anyhow, the whole theme of Chaplin is very important. The girl, which is what gave me the title of the book, the girl, his girlfriend Brigitte, looked very much like the girl played by Louisa Brooks, who played Lulu, and who was a great figure in the 20s, an American girl. And all this was very exciting. And anyhow, Brigitte had a boyfriend who was a stormtrooper and who threatened him badly. And he had got more and more threatening letters until he decided he would leave his hotel and move in to another old friend of his, and that was Mr. Schacht, Hjalmar Schacht, who was the president of the Reichsbank, of the Federal Bank. And Schacht, who later became Minister of Finance of Hitler's, gave him a little room in the Reichsbank, which was heavily guarded with security, and he was safe there. And anyway, he asked Schacht, have you read Mein Kampf? And Schacht said, I would not read such trash, but my wife thinks it's terrific. And he meets Einstein, and he says to Einstein, have you read Mein Kampf? And Einstein says, I looked at it, but it is not to be taken seriously. The war produced all kinds of radicals, and some of them were crazy, lunatics. And you have lunatics always. And I would not take this man very seriously. And so Peter says to Einstein, so what do you feel about the future of Germany? Are you pessimistic, optimistic? And Einstein says, I'm quite optimistic about the future of Germany. However, the anti-Semitism is pretty awful. And particularly as a child, as a boy, growing up in Bavaria, he had never met any anti-Semitism, says Einstein. But once he went back to Germany, he had lived in Switzerland, in I think just before the war, 1908 or something, the anti-Semitism among the scientists and among the intellectuals was incredible. So he had to talk about that. But nothing Einstein said suggested in any way that he took the Nazi threat seriously. And then he meets Schleicher, the kind of the conservative general, who knew something about it, and he said, I think if the conservatives will regain the military, regain power, and especially if we manage to get rid of the parliamentary system, which is the ruin of Germany. A man like Hitler, we military men, conservatives, will always be able to control him. So don't you worry about Hitler. And so one after the other, all the people he knew, and the intellectuals and the business people, etc., none of them took Mein Kampf seriously. And then one day he goes to one of the cabarets, and he talks to, by the way, in the interval between skits, he talks to people and asks them, have you read Mein Kampf? And then nobody had, except one person. And he said to this one person, I think Hitler has to be taken more seriously than the communists, a greater danger. And this man said, I will not listen to this kind of talk. Because if you say this often enough, it'll become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I will not have anybody say this on me. And in the end, after having made his report to the president, written his report to President Hoover, after that, he dies. And the press says he's had a heart attack. This old man coming back to Berlin, out all that excitement, has a heart attack. But in the end, it wasn't a heart attack at all. He was poisoned by the man who had said, I will not have anybody predict that Hitler is going to cause another war, because that would make it true. That would be a self-fulfilling prophecy.